So let's move on. We've seen the cells, we've seen the columns, we've seen the rows. Now I'm going to talk about the active cell. The active cell is, I want to believe that everybody in this course have actually typed before in Microsoft Word. So in Microsoft Word, we'll be having something like the cursor. You'll be having something like the cursor in Word, and the cursor will just be blinking. Here, literally, we're not working with the cursor, but we work with the active cell. Though we have a cursor, but we work with the active cells. So I'm going to show something. So you see the cursor blinking, like you've seen my cursor blinking. So it means that wherever I have my cursor, that's where the text I type will be inserted, and that's it. But in Microsoft Excel, it is not that way. All right, we work with the active cell. So the cell that is enclosed in a thick border is what we call the active cell. So wherever this cell is, it shows that where the text you type will be inserted. So the value you enter here, even if I'm typing 785, will be entered at that point. Maybe I wanted to type at this point and then it's here. So all you have to do is to move your active cell where you should want it to be. There's another lesson where I've actually talked about how to navigate with the active cell. So there are different ways. You can just click anywhere to type, or you can use your keyboard. If you press the right arrow key on your keyboard, is moving to the right, the left arrow key is moving to the left. You see what we have here. The up arrow key is moving up, the down arrow key down, and we have the tab key. So the tab key will take it to the right, and if you press the enter key, it takes it down. You can as well click anywhere to move it. All right, so that's what we call the active cell, the cell that is ready to receive data. And after the active cell, we're going to be talking about the worksheet before we go back again to the name box, the formula bar. We actually skip that so that we can understand better. Now the worksheet. Alright, a worksheet is made up of grid lines consisting of rows and columns. So you would see what I have here. This is basically a worksheet. Alright, and there's what we call workbook. So let me explain a workbook. A workbook is an Excel document that contains 2 or more worksheets. So you can have more than 200 worksheets in a particular workbook. So when you are thinking of a workbook, think like having something like a notebook, and in your notebook you're going to be having different sheets. So you can write in sheet 1, you can even flip to sheet 3. You may even have a notebook that is just 20 leaves. You can have a notebook that is just 10 leaves. Even if you had 20 leaves, like we used to do when we were in nursery school, we'll be tearing out our leaves. They bought 20 leaves at the end of the term, or 40 leaves at the end of the term. We're left with maybe 20 or 15 leaves. So it's the same thing here. Now at default, if you are using any higher version of Excel, you'll be left with just 1 sheet. In the lower versions, we usually have 3 sheets. So at default, you have just 1 sheet, and that's a worksheet here. So that's what we have here, sheet 1. So you have sheet 1 here. If I want to add more worksheets, I can just click here on this plus here to add a new worksheet. So that's one way. You click on this plus to add a new worksheet. So you can see on my sheet 1, that's where I have data. Sheet 2 is just a fresh worksheet. Sheet 3 is another fresh worksheet. I can as well press the keyboard. If you press Shift and F11 on the keyboard, you would be able to insert a worksheet. So you can see what I have here. Shift F11. As I keep pressing, I'm adding more worksheets. Shift and F11 on your keyboard. That's the keyboard shortcut to insert a worksheet. Okay, so these are worksheet, and we're in a workbook. So do not be confused. You hear people say something like, I better save my worksheet. So no, that's wrong. You actually don't save your worksheet, but you save your workbook. Now even if you have just a sheet in that workbook, you're actually saving a workbook. All right, you are not saving a worksheet. Okay, we can say which one is the current sheet. All right, that's okay. Okay, or how many sheets do we have? Do you understand now? But when we want to save, we are saving the entire workbook. The update is actually affecting the workbook. So whether you have sheet, only 1 sheet like we had before when I started, or you have up to like 9 sheets, just like what I have here, is good. And you can see my sheet are just not arranged, so I can arrange them. This is what we call the sheet tab. It's what I'm clicking now. You can click and drag to move them. We call it the sheet tab. So I'm just moving my sheet tab, rearranging my sheets. Where's my sheet 7? So here I have sheet 7, here I have sheet 8, here I have sheet 9. So, and you can rename your sheet. So how do you rename your sheet? You right click and then you click rename. Just rename, you give it a name. So let's say tax 1 for instance, and we okay. I can even double click also to rename. Just double click and let's call this tax 2. I can double click to rename. I can call this tax 4. I can double click to rename. I can call this tax 5. And so you see what I have here. I can even change the tab color. So I can right click and go to tab color and give it any color. Maybe just to add beauty to it, or just to draw your attention to a particular worksheet. Right click on the sheet tab and then you click on the sheet color. So here are the sheet tabs. You click on it to navigate from one sheet to another sheet, and you see what I have here. Beautiful. Don't forget, you click on this plus to add a new worksheet, or you press shift F11 is the keyboard shortcut. So good people, that was the worksheet. Now let's go back to the formula bar and the name box. We start with the name box, but before I explain the name box, there's something very important I want to explain here, and this is very, very important as far as Excel, and not just Excel, other spreadsheet applications is concerned, and they form a very important aspect of data analysis as far as when you are talking about writing of formulas. Now there's what we call cell address, or we call it cell reference. So we call it cell reference or cell address. Now I just finished showing us a worksheet, and I've told us that a worksheet is made up of grid lines consisting of rows and columns. In other way around, a worksheet is made up of multiple cells. So all of these are cells. Imagine we have about 17 point something billion cells here, because on this worksheet here we have a total of 1 million. Let me show you. We have a total of 1,048,576 rows here. So if I click on this point, you see what I have here. Let me just drag this. So can you see what I have there? It has showed where you have 1,048,576R times 1,638,4C. The C that means columns, the R that means row. So we have a total of 1,048,576 rows and 16,384 columns in this worksheet. Now do not forget that wherever the row and the column meet together, they give birth to a cell. So a cell is born. So wherever we have the cell, we are looking at the intersection of the row and the column. So all of these are cells. Now, but the unique thing here, the point I'm driving at here, is that each of these cells has a unique name. So there's nothing like this cell, that cell, the other cell, the cell close to this other one, the one beside it, the one on top, the one below, the one above, or the one by the left, by the right. Every single cell has a name. Now, okay, I just said that. So let's see, 1,048,576 multiplied by 16,384. So that gives us the total number of cells we have here. Do not bother about that, what I just did there. I'll explain it later. All right, so you see we have 17.1 billion cells in this worksheet. So how is it important that I'm stressing this? Because when we start formulas, you realize the importance of what I'm saying now. So I'd like you to pay attention to everything I'm explaining now. Now here at this point we have what's it called again? Here at this point we already have the cells here. So like I said, every cell has a name, and that's what we call cell reference. So a cell reference is the address of a cell or range of cells in a worksheet. How do we address a cell? That's the point. How do we address a cell, or how do we reference a cell? Remember, if you don't call it cell address, you call it cell reference. We address a cell or reference a cell based on the row and the column, the column and the row heading. Based on the column and the row heading. So a cell located under column C, row 2 is called cell C2. A cell located under column E, row 7 is called cell E7. A cell located under column B, row 4 is called cell B4. A cell located under column H, row 3 is called cell H3. Now that's it. So we say cell D6, that's correct. Cell H7, that's correct. Cell A1, that's correct. Cell B2, that's correct. Cell KL9, that's correct. Meanwhile, I just say something. Now the columns here start from A to Z. Let's go on a little journey sharply from A to Z. So when we get to Z, the column now starts again AA. So we'll now be having AA, AB, AC till we get to AZ. So if you keep going, we find AZ very soon. Now you can see now we now start BA. So we continue the journey until we get to AAA. All right, so let me just go that AAA 1. So you see what we have here. We now have AAA. We now continue with the AAAs till the AAA is done. All right, before we now move on to the next one. So the last column here is column XFD. Look at the last column, column XFD. Do not forget I said that we have 16,384 columns here. All right, so these are the columns. Now, like the rows, so we can just keep scrolling. We'll be going down and then until we get to the last row, which is this 1,048,576. Now the point here is that we have about 17 billion cells here. So each of these cells has a name, and that's what we call the cell reference. A cell reference is also called cell address. Is the address of a cell or range of cells in a worksheet. Now these are just example of cell references, but if we say range of cell, I can say A1 is to A5. So that's this is an example of a range of cell. So A1 is to A5. That means that from cell A1 down to A5, we can say G5 is to L300 is also another cell reference. Sorry, another range of cell. And this reference is actually for a range of cell. And that's exactly how it is. So each of these cells has a name, and we're going to be doing that. So just like we have here now, so this cell E2, cell E5, cell H4, all of them has a name. I like you to pay attention to that. Now let's go back to the name box and see. The name box now is this point here where you have this A7. The name box shows or displays the reference of the active cell. So wherever you have the active cell, remember we have talked about the active cell. Wherever you have the active cell is where you have the name box. I have my active cell here. The name box is showing me that my active cell is in cell G3. I click here, the name box is showing me my active cell is in cell C11. I make a block selection, that's a group of adjacent cells selected together. The name box is actually giving me the way the first selection started. But while I was selecting, the name box is telling me the number of rows and columns selected. So you can see 6R times 3C means that 6 rows are selected and 3 columns are as well selected. Beautiful. Now, at this point, all right, so we have that's very important. You take note of that. So we can also use the name box to move the active cell around the Excel worksheet. For example, I want to type in cell D300. Instead of me scrolling down to D300, I can just click on the name box and I type D, I press 300, just enter. Beautiful. Can you see it takes us down there? So I want to type in cell XY, cell XY 50,000. So XY 50, 1, 2, 3. I press enter. It takes me down there. I want to type in cell C7. I just type C7. I press enter. So we can also use the name box to navigate within the Excel worksheet. All you have to do is to enter the reference, and the name box will move the active cell to that cell. Now, as the name implies, it contains names given to the cell. So the name just display, and what that means that we can also rename the cell. We're going to be talking about that when we get higher. But let me just quickly say this. Now, in cell E2, I can change the name of this cell, and it ceases to answer E2 because at default Excel gives it as E2. So I can change it to doctor, for example, or probably just call it doc. So I press enter. Now from this moment, the name of this cell has been changed. You can see it's no more showing, E2 again, like this one will show E3, but it has been showing doc. So if I'm using it in the formula, I would no more reference it as E2 again, but as doc. Anyway, we're going to be talking about that later. So let's undo. To undo is to press Ctrl Z. It means to reverse the last performed action on your worksheet or on your documents. This is where you click to undo. To redo means to repeat the action. So you Ctrl Y, you press to redo. Alright, so that was the name box. Two more things before we go for this lesson. We're going to be talking about the formula bar. Now the formula bar is here. From this point down to the end of this row, shares the same row with the name box, we have the formula bar. So the formula bar is used to enter and to edit worksheet data. What does it mean? To enter and to edit worksheet data. Okay, so if I just type something like so I can just click there and let me type in caps totaliter mechanism, for example, and here I want to type euphemism, so I will just say this and I press enter. So like what I have here at this point, you've seen here, if I type anything here, this guy will be here. All right, now so I can edit. What if I just want to just make it totalitarianist? I just want click here, I can just click on that on the formula bar, and then I edit it. Because one funny thing about Excel is that Excel is not like Microsoft Word. The moment you click on this cell now, you may say, okay, I want to edit. Anything you type now will replace what we have here before. So when you want to edit, there are two ways. Either you click on it on the formula bar to edit, right, like what I have here, or just stop here, or you double click on the cell to reveal the cursor. You double click like what I just did. Now I just double click on the cell, so I can now say totaliter. All right, and I press enter. So that's how it is. The same thing here, you can do it. So now, but doesn't really tell the name given to it. We say it's the formula bar. Now the formula bar, when the result, or sorry, the selected cell contains the result of a calculation, the formula bar will always show the formula. And these are just because we have value typed here, and of course everything we enter in the Excel worksheet is called value. It's a value, that's how we call it. So we don't necessarily have text here, we only have different types of value. Your value could be numeric, your value could be text, your value could be alphanumeric. So for example, therapy is a text value, or we call it an alphabetic data, but G300 is an alphanumeric value or data, and 7894, like what I have here, is a numeric value. So everything you enter in your Excel worksheet is they are called values. So I like you to just take note of that. Now, beautiful. So let's talk more about the formula bar as we get ready to wrap it up here. Now, on the formula bar here, if the result of if you have a cell selected and the cell contains the result of a calculation, the formula bar will enter the formula used. So I would say it equals to 789 times 2, for instance, and that gives me 1578. So 1578, or I would say here 1024, and I would say here it equals to 2 raised to power 10. I think 2 raised to power 10 is 1024. Yes, 2 raised to power 10. So I have this. Now let's look at it. If I click here, the formula bar is showing me the value or the data on the cell. I click here, it's not giving me the data again, rather it's showing me this formula here. So it's showing me that the selected cell contains the result of the calculation, and it's showing the formula, except it is being locked. Yes, you can protect your worksheet and lock it such that the formulas will not be showing again. But here, so here now you see the difference. This one is just 1578, but this one is showing this. Now 1024 is just 1024, but when we click on the next one, it actually shows us the formula used. So that's the formula bar, good people. Last thing in this particular lesson as we go is the fill handle. The fill handle. The fill handle. Now on the fill handle is used to copy data and to create series of information. Now how does it work? In the lower right corner of the active cell, you have a small box. That box is called the fill handle. Let me click here. I'm zooming so that you can see. Now have you seen this small place here where my mouse pointer is? Beautiful. The moment you take your mouse pointer to the fill handle, it changes to a crosshair. So this is a fill handle. The fill handle allows you to copy data and to create series of information. So for example, if I just want to do something like I want to just type 789, and I can just, instead of just doing copy paste, no, well, I can use the fill handle. I just click on it, I click and drag, and that gives me 789. So how did I do that? Again, let's see. First of all, you have to type, So 789, you press enter. Beautiful. You now take your mouse pointer there, you take your mouse pointer to that point, you click and drag. Excuse me. So you click and drag on the fill handle. A lot of people do usually get that wrong. So when you type the number 789, you have to press enter first. It will take your mouse point, the active cell, out of that cell. Click on that cell again, then move your mouse pointer below, just like what we have here. Then you now click and drag. You see what we have here, 789, 789. All right. So what if we want to deal with text value? So let's assume that we're saying Nigeria. So here I can just click and drag on the fill handle. I can even double click save to give me. The fill handle recognizes that there's already a pattern here, and that's why it's just automatically filling it up here. Again, you type that. When you click on the cell again, you take your mouse pointer below here, you click and drag. You click and drag, you would have it here. So that's why I have this Nigeria, 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 Nigeria. Do you understand? Beautiful. So that's it about that. Now, but then what if we're just working with series? So let's assume we have something like January. So I want to say January. I'll just press enter. Here I can just click and drag. The fill handle now understand that I'm working with months. So if I just click more, it will now continue from December to January again and keeps continuing. So that's how I have January, February, March, April, May, June, July, and that's it. Even if I abbreviate it, like I just say Jan, Excel will understand. Just click on the fill handle again, click and drag, and then you would have it here. All right. So the same thing here. I can say Sunday, for instance, and I press enter. So we'll click and drag, and then you see what I have here. Okay, so but then the fill handle can also be used to create series, apart from just series with text, with numeric values, that's numbers. We can do that. So what if they're actually formulas? When we get to formulas, I'll show us the formulas you can easily use. But then what if I want to create, just type a number in series of 2. So let's say something like 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, and all of that. So what would I do? I'll have to type the first 2 numbers. Why? The first 2 numbers will help Excel to define the series. So you will have 2, you will have 4. So I'll now select the 2, and then you click and drag. You see what I have here. So I now have 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20, 22. All right, so now the same thing can be done horizontally. Let's try it again. So I can say 2 here, 4 here, and I select these 2. I'll just click and drag to have it here. So 2, 4, 16. Now I can continue the same thing. This will be 12, and this side will be 14. Yeah, so I can select the 2, and I click and drag. Beautiful. So if I want to just continue, I can select all of this. The moment I select all of these values now, Excel understand the series, and I can just click and drag to have that. There are other ways we are going to do it. I'll show us later, but here we're just focusing on the fill handle. So that's one thing that the fill handle does. Even if the number in decimal, so for example, I want to just do 0.25. Yeah. So, and I say here 0.5 or 75. The moment I select these 2, you have to first click and select the 2. Now selecting is different from moving. Let me explain that now. You have to take your mouse pointer the way it is, you click and drag over it, then you now click and drag to select. But to move means that you just want to move. To move, you move it, you take your mouse pointer to the border, you can click and drag to move. So you have to select the 2, you now click and drag, you have it here. So that's it. Alright, so good people, that's it. We'll see you in the next class. Take out your time and practice very well. Put this keyboard shortcut into practice. I'm going to drop a very short exercise for you to just see how you'll be able to get that done. See you in the next class.